I thought I'd take a minute to show you the trials and tribulations I had trying to make this pattern right here. And I actually did it 5 times. And okay, so let me just kind of tell you what happened. Okay, so this was my first attempt right here, and you can see my roughing. It didn't clean up the roughing right here. It got off. Somehow my measurements were off or something, and my letters are far out from the circle here and real close here. So I was like, well, okay, I'll recut it. And also, I realized, okay, this thing in aluminum is going to be just really heavy. So I decided, okay, I'll do it again. So next, I did this one. And on this one, I got it cut to here. I had to stop because it was night, and so I came back the next day. Well, when I started over, I somehow got off, and I don't know if you can see right here, but I'm already pushed over, and it doesn't have enough meat left over here on this side. So that killed that one. All right, so this is attempt number 3. So I put this on there, and it did all the rough cutting with some, I was using a high-speed steel spiral bit on this, and I let it get too dull. I've got a video out there on how I sharpen them, and they sharpen pretty good. They're not as good as carbide, but they will work. But anyway, so I got it roughed out, and then I started cutting the profile. And it started out doing pretty good, and I thought, okay, well then, I don't know if you can see that, but you see how it started diving down like that? And I was like, what the heck is going on? Okay, well what happened was, I put the bit in there, and I didn't tighten it with the wrench. I just hand tightened it, and then probably one of my kids or something came and distracted me, and I forgot to come back and tighten it down. So every time it was coming over here and hitting this side, the spiral in it was pulling it down a little bit. And so it was going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper each time. Okay, so that ruined that one. All right, so then I decided, well, you know, again, those are going to be really thick in aluminum, and so I think I want to hollow it out. So I made this one, and I started upside down like this, and I hollowed this out. And I thought, okay, well, I got to flip this thing over. So how am I going to do that? Well, I drilled a hole in here, and I can't remember why I've got two different holes in here. There was a reason that happened. But anyway, I originally had one hole in here, and so what I did was I marked off the center. I drilled a hole. I put a nail in it that would just fit. And then I drilled a hole in the table so that I could key that down in there, and then when I flipped it over, I could take the nail and key it right back down into that hole, and so that way I could get this hollowed out part in the center of this part. Okay, so that's what I did. I did this, then I flipped it over, I keyed it in there, and I cut this side. Well, I had 2 problems. Okay, it looks really good. I mean, the spacing is good, the lettering is good. I was real happy with it. Except, and you're probably not going to be able to see this part, but right here, again, I had to cut half of this one and then start again the next day. Like I said, I have to run my machine really slow. And so it took so long to cut it, you know, I had to turn it off and go to bed and try to finish it up the next day. Somehow I got the Z-axis off of just a little bit, and I got this hump right here. And I was like, well, that's not great. I guess I could sand it out if I had to or whatever. But then when I flipped it over, I was like, wait a minute. It's really thick, like almost a ½ inch here. Really thin over here, like an 1/8 inch or narrower. It's like, what is the problem? So I thought, well, maybe something moved or whatever. And then I thought, well, maybe my CNC machine's not doing X and Y the same. So I got a piece of poster board, and I made a some G-code, you know, that would do these circles. A tool path that would do these circles. So it drew these circles out for me. And I was like, okay, so I'm 16 inches and an eighth on the outside. And that was, I believe, the X direction. And this is Y. And in Y, I'm 15 and 7/8. And I was like, okay, I'm a 1/4 of an inch difference between the two. That would certainly account for the difference. When I flipped this over, I must not have kept it in the exact same reference. And so I kind of, you know, rotated it. And that's why I got this messed up. Anyway, that's why it messed up. So anyway, apparently I've got a little bit of an oval here. You can't really tell it by looking at it like that. So I made some adjustments and I kept kind of working on it. This was the next one I did. And then this is the final one I did. And I think it came out to be 16 in that direction and 16 in that direction. So it's like, okay, now I got it tuned up. I got a chance at doing it right. Okay. So then I brought this one in, and I used the same thing to key, you know, the finish nail to key it. And what I did was I started out, did this side first. It was a 14-inch block, and so I screwed it down in the corners, and you know, keyed it into the hole, screwed it down in the 4 corners, took this out, hollowed it out, then I flipped it over, put that back in, keyed it into that hole, screwed it down on the 4 corners, and then I cut this out. And it did a really good job. I'm really happy with it. But I just thought I'd take a minute to show you. You know, I don't know if you have trouble like this like I do, but you know, every time I learn something, and I guess that's a whole lot about what this is about, is, you know, learning as you go. But I have a video out there on how I made this pattern in ViaCAD, or sometimes it's called PunchCAD, and then transferred it into ArtCam Express. And that was, to me, the cheapest way. I like building things in ViaCAD. It's easier. It's more engineer oriented by measurements. And then ArtCam's kind of more art oriented. So ArtCam's easy to do lettering in and stuff like that for me. ViaCAD's easier to build stuff in. So a lot of times I'll build it in ViaCAD, move it into ArtCam, and then do some of this stuff. And then ArtCam will also make the tool paths. So between the two, I think, but for both of them, I paid like $300 or something for both of them, and it's been a pretty good solution for me so far. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and had a good laugh out of it. Thank you for watching.